happy new fiscal year to happy new school year to everyone. Sorry. In any event, we have a relatively quick and fast meeting with few agenda items. The first item is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on June 6th.
Move them.
Second.
Any questions, comments, changes? If we none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Information reports now. The first from Associate Vice Chancellor Matt Sapienza regarding the current status of the city and state budgets.
Thanks, Chair Loda. Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone again. I want to give everyone an update on where we are with both the state and city budgets, and this is a very interesting time of the year, the fall, because as you know, our fiscal year starts on July 1st, so we've opened up the new fiscal year 12, but we're still working on closing out fiscal year 11, and we're starting to plan for fiscal year 13. So we have 3 years that we're kind of juggling in this time of year, and so let me go through each of the years and the issues that we have for each of the years. So fiscal year 11, we are currently working on closing out with both the state and the city, and we're really ending the year in a very strong condition university-wide. And I really want to acknowledge and really give credit to our college presidents and our VPs for finance and administration. They really had to make some tough choices this past year with the budget cuts that they sustained, and they really did a terrific job managing a difficult situation. Overall, spending is actually down, or it was projected to be down year to year at the senior colleges from fiscal 10 to fiscal 11. And so that, again, shows you that doesn't happen often in government, that you see a actual year-to-year spending decrease. But senior colleges spending is down. Community colleges, it's up slightly, but overall at the university, and we're not formally closed out yet, but we're projecting only a 0.2 increase in spending at our colleges from year to year. And when you keep in mind that a lot of the spending increases are due to contractual increases, salary increments, mandated cost increases, it really was a very difficult year for our colleges that they managed really, really well. And so we should be closed out by the end of the month, and at that point we'll issue our year-end reports and we'll review that at a future meeting of this committee. Fiscal 12, which began on July 1st, a lot has happened since our last meeting of this committee. The state came to an agreement on a rational tuition policy and an agreement on higher ed for both SUNY and CUNY. The state budget, the city budget rather, was adopted since the last time we met. So there's a lot that's gone on. There's been a lot of information that's been given out since then regarding the budget situations, both the state and city. We've had a board meeting to approve the $300 tuition increase that was effective for this fall. So I won't dwell too much on that because I know that was yesterday's news and we've given out a lot of information on that already. But I want to talk about really two things, fiscal 12. One is the allocation process. Once the board meeting was completed to authorize the tuition increase, we very soon thereafter then sent out our allocations for the senior colleges and the community colleges. And while the budget was certainly much better than what we anticipated, there still was the need to do some reductions. And so the senior college budgets were reduced by 1.75% for the current year. The community college budgets on the city side remained flat. So again, although the budget situation is much better than we had originally anticipated, there are still going to be some tough decisions that our campuses are going to have to make in the current year. However, with the additional revenue that we were able to generate from the fall tuition increase, we were able to do a compact investment plan and included that in our allocations. And so at the senior colleges, it was almost $17 million. The biggest item that was included in there was the addition of 100 faculty lines at the senior colleges. And at the community colleges, the total investment plan was $8.5 million, and it included 60 additional faculty lines. And so we're very encouraged about that. We're glad that we have an investment vehicle in the current year. We're also setting aside, as part of the compact, $1 million for financial aid assistance to any of those students that, would be put in harm's way with the tuition increase. So the allocations are out. The colleges are getting ready to now put together their financial plans and submit them to us for the year. We met with the Council of Presidents this morning, and we reiterated with them the need, when developing their compact plans, to ensure that there is consultation with elected student and faculty leaders on the campus. So those discussions will be taking place over the next several weeks. In terms of the overall state and city budget condition, the state in Division of Budget in early August came out with their first quarter projection. And the state situation is pretty stable in the current year. They are still projecting a $1.7 billion surplus for the current year, which was the same that they were projecting when the budget was adopted. So revenues appear to be stable. They do have a deficit of about $2.5 billion for next year, but in the current year things look stable on the state budget. And knowing that the state budget started on April 1st, we're almost about halfway through the state fiscal year. So the fact that there hasn't been any need for mid-year cuts so far is an encouraging sign. The city budget is also in a balanced condition at this point of the year, but again, the city budget is only 2 months old at this point, so things could change. The thing to be concerned about on the city side, though, is they have a very big deficit for next year. It's over $4 billion, and so that's something that we'll have to look towards as the city budget process kicks into gear starting in November. So that's where we are in the current year in fiscal 12. Fiscal 13, we are starting our budget request process for next year. And the budget request is going to be presented at our next meeting of this committee, which is on October 31st. And then once we have that meeting, we will then be presenting the request to the full board at the November 28th meeting. So we're already starting to plan for fiscal 13. We're going to be meeting with our Council of Presidents Fiscal Committee next week to review it with them. And we're going to be meeting with the Budget Advice Committee of the Faculty Senate and with the students to get their feedback as to what our key initiatives should be for next year, what we should be focusing our resources on. And you'll see the results of that at our next meeting on the 31st of October. The other thing that I want to point out and make sure that everyone's aware of is, as part of the new agreement on higher ed that the governor and the legislature came to earlier in the summer, the University Board of Trustees also needs to approve a 5-year tuition plan, and that's something that we'll also be presenting at the November board meeting. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Okay, so any questions on any of that, whether it's current year or next year in terms of the process?
Will that plan come to this committee first, or is there another path for that?
That will also be done at this committee on the 31st. Mm-hmm. Okay.
A plan, you still have to vote when you, say for instance, you vote on a 5-year plan and a tuition plan, but does it still have to be voted on each year, or is it you vote on it once for that 5 years?
Once it's voted on once.
It could be changed, but
Yeah.
without a change, it's effective, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a nice, warm meeting. Yeah.
Corey, you getting ready?
Yeah.
Increase in student body, the relationship, new faculty, what's the relationship to our student body from one year to the next?
Well, this has been a challenge that we've had over the last several years, is that although we've made some tremendous strides in bringing on new faculty, we haven't been able to keep pace with the enrollment growth. Enrollment, the early data show that enrollment is up university-wide about 3% for this fall. So we still are experiencing enrollment increases. And so these additional faculty lines that we've given out as part of the compact will help to keep up, but certainly not to the extent of the the enrollment increases.
We will have projected to have the largest class in the history of City University in the fall. We're projecting about 270,000.
This fall,
Yeah.
now, yeah.
270?
70.
That's a city.
Degree seeking students. We also then have some
Right.
that
I
continue
remember
their
when it was under
policy.
200.
And what's interesting is when you look at the mix of the academic profile, it's very heavily weighted more these days towards high-achieving students. Students with high school averages above 85 and SAT scores that are higher as well. So I have this view of, it's a tale of two tales. A TALE of two TAILS. We're getting very high achieving students, and we're also getting students that need a lot of help. And that is a difficult model to manage because you need a lot of resources and very strong management when you have this bimodality. And that is a continuing challenge for the university. Plus, a number of our campuses are experiencing stress on the facilities because absent having different modalities of instruction, it's very, very difficult to put as many students as we are getting enrolled into the classrooms now. And at some point, the board is going to be given a lens on the master plan that we are working on now. And one of the themes of that master plan is going to be different ways of delivering instructional material as the university continues to get a greater market share of students, in part because the reputation of the university has increased, but also the economy, being what it is, still requires we to be attentive to the students that want to get skills that they may not have. So we have some real challenges ahead that relate to the size of the classes that we're experiencing.
One other fiscal issue I just wanted to make sure the committee is aware of, and that is the cost related to last week's hurricane. We've been working with both the state and the city on providing them with the costs that our colleges have incurred to date. So far, from the data we've collected from our colleges, it's a little over $1 million, about $1.1 million in expenses. Most of that was due to overtime costs that our colleges sustained because most of our colleges were evacuation centers. Your college had, I think, 800 folks, mostly from the Rockaways, who were evacuated and who were staged at your college for the day or two until they were ordered to go back. So a lot of our colleges had costs due to being evacuation centers. Many of our colleges had other costs related to having flooding in the buildings and things like that. And so we are working with both the State Division of Budget and the Office of Emergency Management, same on the city side with OMB and with the City Office of Emergency Management to make sure that they're aware of our costs and any potential FEMA reimbursement that comes in, make sure that that gets down to our colleges to cover their expenses.
How did, I was worried about Kingsborough Community College and wanted to ask, since they're right on the water, how did they fare?
They did very well. They had a little bit of leakage, had a couple of trees down, nothing major.
How does closing the campuses Friday through Monday affect our FTEs?
It shouldn't affect the overall FTEs. The campuses were told on Sunday, after the hurricane had passed, that basically it was up to each campus what they wanted to do for Monday. Because some campuses were in different situations, as Kingsborough versus one of the Manhattan schools, perhaps. But I think most of our campuses decided to not have day classes on that Monday. Some did have graduate classes that evening, on Monday evening. But in terms of our overall FTE, shouldn't really make a difference.
Those classes will be made up.
Our new students will have a good story to tell about how their college career started in a hurry. That's all.
Other budgeting questions? Before we go on to the next report, I'd like to introduce our new student representative. I'm going to mispronounce your name, and I apologize. Maklasur Rahman, and from
My name is
LaGuardia
Maklasur
Community
Rahman.
College.
I'm from LaGuardia Community College.
Yes.
I'm also part of student government. I'm current vice president of student government, and my major is electrical engineering.
Welcome.
Major is what?
Electrical.
Electrical engineering.
Well, welcome to the board.
Welcome. And now we have a report from Janet Crone, our Chief Investment Officer. I read the report and I was so amazed at the numbers until I went back to the first sentence and saw it was for the period ended June 30th.
Right.
Well, that's a good lead-in. And the final numbers that we have available at this point are through July. And just to give it some context, even though global equities started off the year doing well, by late April, the Federal Reserve announced that it would not continue, was going to end QE2. And we started to see some negative economic surprises. And the market started to sell off in May and June. So through the first 7 months of the calendar year, global equities were up about 3.5% to 4.5%. Government, global bonds, and long duration U.S. credits were returning 6.5% to 7.5%. All economic sectors were still in the black, except for financials, and the pool was up over 4%, and and beating about 74% of our peers at that time. And then, of course, August came, and during the first 9 days of August, the pool lost 6%. The preliminary numbers through the end of August for the first 8 months of the calendar year will bring the pool basically flat. And that's true for all asset classes except for fixed income, which, as you know, has been doing very well. So well, in fact, that we were about 3 to 4% above our target allocation. And as a risk control measure, we started to harvest some of those gains in a 2-part rebalancing process. And the second part will probably occur in another month. We'll take a look at the situation. Mm-hmm. But we're holding in there. We're hoping that we're hoping for a miracle. Looking forward to the leadership from the Federal Reserve to see what's going to happen. The beige book just came out today, so in 2 weeks they'll be having their meeting, and the consensus is that they may shift their purchases from the short end to the long end of the curve, and bring down mortgage rates and auto rates. But what that will ultimately accomplish, I don't know until there's some sense of a leadership, I think, politically in this country. So, and that will take some time. With that.
Well said.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Janet? Before we move to...
Sure, if I can, I just wanted to add one other thing on the investment area, which is we sent a correspondence out to the college presidents yesterday, informing them that we are starting a CUNY Endowment Council. And we've asked all of the presidents to have at least one representative from the campus, and we'll leave it to the presidents to decide who is best suited at the campus to do that. We think some campuses it may be the Vice President for Finance and Administration, some campuses might be the Director of the Foundation or the VP for Institutional Advancement, but we think it'll be a good forum, and we're planning on meeting quarterly. We think it'll be a good forum to talk about things like the NMIFA legislation and how we're implementing that at each of our foundations, to talk about, any other investment-related issues, to share best practices amongst the colleges, and so we'll report on that going forward, but our first meeting is going to be next month. So we're looking forward to having these discussions with the campuses.
You may want to invite some members of the college foundations that are responsible, fiduciary responsibility for managing the portfolios, to be involved. I'm sure they would be very interested in participating.
Great.
Judah, I noticed, I saw you grimace when you used the acronym NMIFA, which I can't pronounce right, but at a later date, you've missed some of the most exciting meetings you could possibly imagine, explaining what could possibly be, you may not appreciate this, some of the worst legislation coming out of Albany, and how it regulates our various different foundations, though I know you've seen some in the past. Before we adjourn, and a motion to adjourn, I do want to announce that immediately after the adjournment, there is going to be a presentation regarding the fact that we're going paperless and be explaining how the iPads will work for us. With that, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thanks. Thank you.
Committee on Fiscal Affairs is now a paperless committee meeting, and using Apple iPads. And I'll very quickly go through and demonstrate how you